All right, so the general fund, the general fund will be, these will all be under the same kind of umbrella. And we'll kind of, I mean, as we run into these, we'll go over them. We've talked about these, but not really done the journal entries for some of them. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is the fund counting. And the second thing we're going to do is the government-wide. And so I think we'll keep them separate. And I don't know, I've always been kind of conflicted about whether I should do both the journal, the journal entry for one and the journal entry for the other at the same time. Would that be more confusing, or if doing them completely separate? I think I've been doing it completely separate, but if anyone has any desire to do them side by side, we can. Okay. So a new truck was ordered. They don't give us a date. A new truck was ordered for the department at a cost of $94,000. So this is fund accounting. This is that weird accounting where you have budget accounts, you put your hand on the money and all that. So what's going to be the journal entry when we order this truck? Anyone? So pull up the what do I have here? So pull up the general fund one. Let's go down to page down to is this page 8 or is this problem 8? Page 5, problem 8. So what is the, I gotta change this too. So what's going to be the journal entry here?
The encumbrances account?
Yep. I'm going to bold this. So we're going to put our hand on the money. And again, we're doing this because we cannot let anyone else spend this money. So we're going to put our hand on the money. And that basically tells everybody, look, you can't spend this because we already have this. Okay, question? Okay, city print shop. This is one of those, what they call internal service funds. And the idea is this: a lot of times, it doesn't make sense for the say all the printing that's done for building permits, and you got printing that's done for the education, for the school district. You got printing that's done for the general government when they put out their flyers and all that kind of stuff. Instead of having each of those places either contacting people on the outside to get printing done or having their own printing service, they say, okay, look, we're going to have one printing service, and you go here and get your stuff printed. So if you need building permits printed, you go here. If you need stuff for the school printed, you go to the same place. So it's internal. So it's an internal service fund, and it's going to be a fund that's basically run like a business, and it's where everyone can go and get their stuff done. They also a lot of times will have things like I think I mentioned this, like repair shops, for the police cars and fire trucks and all that kind of stuff, road equipment. They'll have a repair shop that'll do the work for all those different funds, and it's called internal service because it services those groups internally. So that's what this is. Okay, so oops, it should be a capital, it should be regular P. So they did $1,200 of work. Okay, so what we're going to have here is what is it when you spend money for the general fund? We only use one account for it. What is it?
Expenditures?
Yep. Now, we haven't paid it yet. So what are we going to have there?
Accounts payable.
Very close, very close. What do we call it when it's from one fund to another? If it was out, if it was an external print shop that was, a regular business that we paid it to, it would be a payable.
Due from.
Good. Actually, this would be due to, but yeah, it's exactly. Use the due to and due froms for this one. And probably something along due to, you can put internal service fund. You maybe even put for the print shop. I'll say internal service. Oops. So yeah, there's due to, and that's another thing that's wacky about governmental accounting is that if it's between funds, so this would be between the general fund and the internal service fund. And actually, if you want to, if you're looking at the internal service fund, it would look like this on their books. Oops. Service fund would have it due from. Oops. Oh, okay. So the internal service fund would have something that looked like that. So the general fund would have this. Internal service fund would have printing. We have that. Yeah, so that's the weird thing. If it's between funds, you'll have that due to and due from. If it's outside, if it's like a print shop that everybody can go to, like Kinko's or something like that, then it would be a payable. Okay, an $11 million bond was issued at face value to build a new road. Okay, this would probably, this you could do one of two ways. It could either go into the general fund, and then the general fund could transfer it to the capital projects fund. Capital projects is for building things, roads, buildings, all that kind of stuff. So you could either go into the general fund first and then transfer it, but you could also, if this is all for that road project or that project, whatever it is, put it right directly into that fund, which I think is probably the easier way to think about it. Okay, so this will be C. So I would probably put it into the capital projects fund. So we're going to use this capital projects fund. And we're going to pick up cash. And there's no way 11 million is going to fit here, I don't think. Oops. So we're going to pick up cash. Maybe I'll hold it. So cash asset going up. And other financing sources. Bonds. Now remember, this is like a checkbook. So these bonds are probably going to take years to pay off. But it's, as far as our budget, as far as our checkbook is concerned, it is just another financing source. So that's kind of a, it's kind of a strange way to think about it, but that, as far as the checkbook is concerned, to say, okay, we sold these bonds, we now got $11 million that we can use for this project, and it's just a source. There is no bonds payable, but it's going to, long-term liability on the books. We don't have long-term liabilities on the books in the general fund, the fund accounting. So that's kind of unusual. Question on that thing? Okay. The city transfers cash of $140,000 from its general fund to provide a permanent financing for a municipal swimming pool that will be maintained as an enterprise fund. Okay, enterprise fund is a business type of group. And they are one of those things that is it's considered as sort of a component of governmental, but they're usually working separately. For instance, things like O'Hare Airport, things like that. Those are enterprises. They're on their own. They're generating money for the city, but they are generally run as sort of like a business, and they're not run as necessarily a government fund. Okay, so on the government, we would just have the C transfer is cash. So is cash going up or down?
Down.
Down. Okay. Now, on the other side, notice that we're not really, you can think, okay, maybe that's an expenditure, but actually it's not. We're giving it to some other group, the swimming pool, and they're going to spend the money. So this would actually be a transfer out. And again, it's sort of like an expenditure, but it's that we're giving it to somebody else to spend. So if you're wondering why that's not an expenditure, we're not going to spend the money. We're going to give it to this fund, probably to establish this swimming pool, and they're going to expend the money to build the pool and whatever, I guess. So this is other use. Again, it's not. We're not going to expend it. They are, and when they expend it, it's just going to be an expense or an asset because this is an enterprise fund. This is run like a business. Okay, the truck ordered in A is received at actual cost of $96,000. Okay, so we encumbered 94,000. It came in, now it costs 96,000. So what is the journal entry for that? There's actually two entries for it.
Encumbrance.
Yeah, we got to take the encumbrance off the books. Now we're going to take the encumbrance off the books. We're simply going to reverse this out. Right, this is just going to be reversed out. So we're going to debit encumbrances outstanding and credit encumbrances. And then I'll take it off the books. Now we're taking it off at 94,000, exactly what we put it on at. Wrong number, sorry. Okay, and what are we going to do down here? So we received it.
Expenditure.
Yep. And probably a payable, it could be accounts payable, the book will probably say that vouchers payable. Okay. The city transfers cash of 32,000 from the general fund, its general fund, to a capital projects fund. So let's take the general fund first. We'll do it for both of these. Second here. So for the general fund, the cash, is it going up or down?
Down.
It's going to be on the other side most likely. Now, it's not going to be an expenditure because we're not really expending the money. We're giving it to somebody else to spend. What's it going to be most likely?
Transfer out.
Yep, very good. Not out. Transfers out to capital projects. Oh. Size. Okay. So we have transfer out for the capital projects fund. Now let's do the same thing. Well, let's do the general, not the same thing. Let's do the capital projects fund, what they would have. And so, if you're running the capital projects fund, this is what you'd be doing, putting this on the books. So for the capital projects fund, is the cash going up or down?
Up.
Yep. So for you, up. And what would be on the other side?
Can you do a transfer in? Or
Yep. Exactly. Transfer in. Oops, let's try that again. Transfer in from the general fund. G, we have not talked about. I mentioned the fund, but I didn't mention what we do with it. So the city receives a grant. And it must be spent to promote recycling. Okay, so must be spent to promote recycling. This is a special revenue fund. And a special revenue fund is a fund that can only be spent for a specific purpose. It smells like I got my, see this buff on my head? That's a 15-pound little dog. I was hooking up my 2 dogs to go for a walk, and the one yanked and I fell onto a, anyway, I was knocked out by a 15-pound dog. Anyway, what a special revenue fund is, it can only be spent on that. Now, here's the weird thing about it. That, you don't normally think that'd be revenue, but it's only revenue if you spend it for what you're supposed to spend it for. And if you don't spend it for what you're supposed to spend it for, you have to send it back. So special revenue funds they're only earned when they are spent. So when they first give it to you, it's not going to be earned. Okay. Hey, get out of the way. Okay. So special revenue fund. So is our cash going up or down?
Up.
Good. Yep. And we are going to pick this up as unearned revenue. You may say unearned grant revenue. But unearned revenue for, oh, I put the number in. What was it? 30,000. So this is a liability. So this unearned revenue is a liability going up. And, basically, if we don't spend it for recycling, the state's going to want it back. So that's going to be a liability. Until we spend it, it's a liability. Okay, so H. The first $5,000 of the grant received in G is expended as intended. Okay, so let's do the expenditure first. And I already gave it away. What account do we use when we spend the money? That's right, just like I said, expenditure. Is the cash going up or down?
Down.
And now we can recognize some of this unearned revenue. So we're going to take off some of this liability off the books and recognize it as revenue. So we're going to have unearned revenue. Oops. Slightly going down, we've now earned it of 5,000. And we're just gonna pick that up as revenue. We did our part. And so we will. So this is when we, this would be in the special revenue fund. I should have put that in. Okay, let's stop there and we'll come back, say be back at. 7:13 maybe. Their concern. Okay, so we ordered a truck. So for government-wide, now this would just be governmental activities. I don't know if we need to put that in. Oops. These are basically all going to be governmental activities. I think there's only one that's business type. I'll put it in. Won't hurt anything. So what do we do with it? That's right. Nothing, no entry. Governmental activities is sort of like a regular accounting. And notice that we ordered the new sanitation truck, but we don't owe anything, right? Until they deliver that truck, we don't, no transactions happen. So just to kind of recap, on the book. So when we order that truck, fund financial statements, you'll make a journal entry. On the government-wide books, no entry. The print shop. This is an internal service fund. So this is internal. It's part of the regular government. We don't count that as an actual transaction. It has nothing to do with anything outside of the fund. It's all inside the whole group of funds. So there is no entry here either. The school system is in, it was in the general fund, and so is the internal service fund. The print shop is also in there. Okay, so An $11 million bond was issued at face value to build a new road. All right, let's think about just regular accounting. If you issued a bond for $11 million in accounting, you know, you print out the bonds, you sold them to the public, and you get $11 million back, what would the journal entry be? You know, and it doesn't matter what you're using it for. What would the journal entry be? Let's take the easy part. Is your cash going up or down?
Up.
Up. So our cash okay, now in government, now for government wide here, what are we going to call that? In normal, you know, in normal accounting, what would we call that when we, you know, we're going to have to pay off these bonds at some point in the future.
Bonds receivable.
The- and liability going up. And so this will be a long-term liability, most likely. And you know, notice the difference here. We have this long-term liability. This is $11 million. It's going to be on our financial statements. Notice the difference between these two. You know, up here we didn't have any liability. We don't have long-term liabilities on the books for government for a general fund or fund accounting. We don't have on the books, so there is no long-term liability. Down here we do. This is like our normal accounting, or what we're more used to, similar to GAAP. Okay, down here, I think I got to add an extra row or two here. I do. Oh, I did. Oh, hold on. I inserted column instead. Okay, so now here's the thing. We're going to have a governmental activities. We're also going to have, oh, no, not that. I was taking it down already. Here we go. We're also going to have a business type activities. Swimming pool is going to be the enterprise fund. So it's really business type. So okay, so for government activities, cash is going down. Okay, now this swimming pool. It's gonna be run like an enterprise fund, but who owns it? It's
The
actually,
government?
yeah, exactly. The government's still gonna own it. So this is gonna be a transfer between these two funds. So it's still a fund, it's an enterprise fund, but it's still owned by, so it's not gonna be, it's not external. It's not that we're giving this money to somebody on the outside. We're still gonna own this money, and the idea most likely is hopefully this thing will make money and help fund the government. As long, and and also provide a swimming pool. Okay, so this will be so what is it when we give money from one fund to another? Now notice the general fund didn't spend the money.
Transfer out?
Yep. Swimming pool. And down here for the business, they'll pick up the money as coming in, right? So this will be cash. That we'll use to build the pool, I would assume. I'm gonna stop you for just a second. And government-wide, also remember though, that because it's run like a regular business, we're also gonna have, instead of expenditures, we have expenses, but we're also gonna have long-term assets. So if that enterprise fund builds a swimming pool, it's not gonna be an expenditure. It's gonna be a long-term asset, swimming pool. They'll put it on the books and they'll depreciate it and all that kind of stuff. So it's not gonna be, there aren't any expenditures in government-wide. They're either expenses or they are assets you put on the books. Okay, we got the truck ordered in A. Now, remember, we didn't do anything in A, so there really was no point for me coming back up here to look at it because there's nothing there. We don't put our hand on the money here in this type of accounting. So what is it when you get a truck for $96,000 and you haven't paid for it yet? What accounts are we going to use?
Equipment, truck, and cash.
Yeah, probably not cash yet. We haven't paid for it yet, so it'll probably be some kind of a payable, vouchers payable or accounts payable. Okay, so let's see. So equipment is going up. It's an asset. $6,000. And accounts payable. Liability going up. We now owe 96,000. So, and this is, you go back to accounting 210. That's exactly the entry you'd make, right? You buy a truck on credit, you get you count. Actually, I should change this. The book would probably use it. Vouchers payable. It's the same thing, but you have some kind of a payable. Oops, that's not. Yep. This is the important part here, that you owe this money. You can put accounts payable too. And vouchers payable are not only used by governmental agencies. There are businesses that use vouchers payable too. It really isn't. It really just is a timing basically thing. Is approval of it, and then it goes. The voucher payable goes into the system as something that will be paid on a certain date. It's no different than accounts payable. Okay, city transfers cash from the general fund to capital projects fund. Now remember, these are in the same group. These are in the same group. No entry. This is just interfund transfers. Okay, G. This one is very similar to what we do for the fund accounting. And that we have cash. So we have cash and unearned revenue. And and just like before, it's not going to be earned until we spend it. But we don't call it an expenditure. We don't have expenditures in regular accounting. Instead of expenditures, we're probably going to use what account? It still starts with an E.
Expenses.
Yep. So we don't have expenditures, but we still have expenses. And you probably want to label that those are for, what's this for? Recycling. Our cash is going down. And like before, we're not going to recognize this unearned revenue as revenue. So we're going to take off unearned revenue for 5,000. And now we can count as regular old revenue because we've now earned it by spending. Question on that one. So the only real difference between our fund accounting or general fund accounting and the government-wide is that we're going to have expenses instead of expenditures. Everything else is the same. Okay, I think I'm gonna have you guys see if you can figure out problem 39 on your own. Let me. There's one here I just want to talk about that is. This one is. You know, I'm going to change this. Okay, Pro 39. Homework. We'll go over this next week, but homework I'm going to have you do is. ABCD. This one's kind of wacky. And the reason I'm doing this one's kind of wacky. And that one's wacky. That one we did before. You know, I said ABC and is that G? ABCD and G. So this will be the homework for next week. So problem 39, A, B, C, D, and G. And we'll do that for the, let's just do the fund financial statements. They're the wacky ones, the harder of the two. Okay, any question on that? So A, B, C, D, and G. Any questions? And we'll go over them. Don't try them, and don't be afraid to make a mistake. You know, if you, we'll put the right answers up. And so next week, we're actually close to the end here. Next week is week 14, and we go to 15. So next week we'll finish up this, and then we'll do some financial statements, and then we'll preview for the test for the chapter 16 and 17. Any questions? Okay, well, have a good evening, and I will talk to you in a week's time.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.